This is a song I wrote about, I had gotten stuck up on top of Daisy Pass in a big snowstorm one time and had this image sort of burned into my mind of coming down off that mountain with the neon lights of Cooke City kind of glowing up through the snow and the haze below. And I never had a story. I felt like I should write about that, but I didn't have a story for it until my buddy named Chris Warren up in Cooke City wrote this really great book about Ernest Hemingway and the whiskey runners that he used to hang out with in that part of the world. And then I felt like I had a plot. The song's called Beggars and Thieves. When you hire and fire and work the winos, a decent hand is hard to find. There's men who can and men who will. Men who have are fewer still. But Floyd was tough as the night. The old-timers fish fry. We'd fought back to back and rode side by side. If we were nothing but beggars and thieves, it wouldn't be the worst thing you've heard about me. And out the back door of the Cooke Creek Saloon, everybody knows who you gotta talk to. All these white-collar cowboys are gonna get theirs. With the Carbon County Sheriff working bankers' hours, you could hide from God behind those mountains. And after dark, you could be sure you had lost him. And if we were nothing but thieves and beggars, you know I've done worse things to folks I like better. We were taking the Bannock back into town, drifted to the stirrup and still coming down. All the distant lamps dancing like shimmering coals and casting a cold light through the black snow. How the hot breath off the horses steamed, quiet as a church where church folks ought to be. And over my shoulder I heard a pigtail pop and a cry roll out like a rifle shot. But folks can't help talking, it don't mean any harm. But his horse and his saddle came back to the barn. There's men who can and men who will. Men who have are fewer still. My name's Jackson Holte. I pay rent in Gardner. I work for the Forest Service in Pinedale, Wyoming. So I'm moving around all the time. We're putting out this record this summer, so I'm playing a lot of dates in between when I'm not working. I've been doing these kind of crazy traveling summers for 12 years now. And it exhausts me more than it used to, but it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Summer's so short and sweet up here. For 3 months, you can do whatever you want and sleep there at night, and it's great. And then Gardner's been a great place to go. Winter, I spent 8 winters in Missoula, and then after the pandemic, there was no work in Missoula, and the rent doubled, and so I spent a little time in Livingston, and then wound up living with this great gal in Gardner, trying to make that stick. I fell backwards into it. I had hunted in the bighorns in Wyoming with my dad when I was a kid. I really wanted to come out west. Missoula ended up be in the right place to go to school. Early on at Missoula, I got a scholarship to take Smoke Elzer's packing class in the Rattlesnake. And I didn't really understand this at the time, but I understand in hindsight that there are some old outfitters who help Smoke teach that class in the evenings and then poach ambitious young 18-year-old kids to come work for nothing. So I would like take that class at night, and these old guys would be like, "You've got a real knack for this, son. Like, have we got an opportunity for you?" And so I went to 4 years in college there, and I packed for an outfitter every summer, and I had no horse experience at all before that, and was just hog wild about it. And then then I had 3 years packing experience and a bachelor's degree, and it was relatively easy to get on with the Forest Service after that. I did a summer where I interned in Gardner, and then to pay for the internship, I went and I worked on a hay crew up on a ranch in Willow Creek, and so I spent a summer just hauling back and forth between Red Lodge and Gardner, and then I had my dear friend up in Cooke City we talked about. Anyway, that's the long ways around. Finally got into a packing job, and I'm super lucky to have to get to spend that much time in the woods, but also have a relatively stable and predictable federal job so I can book things like this on the side and continue to play music. It's not really super important for me to make my living playing music, but I enjoy having the time to invest in doing it at a professional level. It is very frustrating to suck at music. You always wish you were better. So it's really, I only work 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months I'm a musician, which is really satisfying for me to put in the time on it. I'm told that this is the piano from the Bear Creek Saloon. I'm just a dork for these kind of things. I think this is the coolest. This sounds made up, but I once bet my last $2 on a pig race at the Bear Creek Saloon and won $25 on the race. It was one of the better days of my life. Well, it snowed up high this morning in the last persistent dark, and first light found a white shroud cast across the yard. As quickly as it entered, it faded with the stars, and dried up just like footprints in the bed of the reservoir. And whether I was dreaming or I was drinking, I remember that you were there, with a smile playing on your lips, and the snow hung up in your hair. Now the frost gleams on the window, and the coffee's getting close. She's as gentle as the snowfall, and warm as the pot-bellied stove. There were times I was too gentle, and times I was too rough. It's not the gentle ones that I regret so much. Well, I could have laid the mountains low, so badly I wanted your trust. You had your secrets hidden, like fawns kept back in the brush. Then I was at your wedding, or I was at your funeral, or something that I bought a suit for. But I knew down in my bones you'd never darken my door. Now the ashtray needs emptied and the coffee's getting cold. I sat at that piano and
till the weather broke. I was up on Dalton Mountain when the last good snow came in, like a vision of bright, white and glistening, as familiar as the hymns that your mother used to sing, as fleeting as a glimpse of the new fawns in the spring. I can see your smile, hear your cries, clearer than in dreams, when seasons out of memory return again to me.
I can tell you that in America, work and money are not correlated in any way. But money may not be correlated, but I know I've learned a satisfaction of being able to do the things that you aspire to do. When I started out and I was doing these outfitting trips, you'd have people who would pay, a decade of savings to take a vacation in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and then they'd show up and they'd be cold and wet and their ass would be sore the whole time and they'd have a miserable time because it's not something you can buy. You have to learn how to do it. Same goes for writing a song. People will come up to me and ask, how do you write a song? And the truth is, just write one every day and you'll get better. There's no work can buy you that in time. After 10 years packing for a living, I had accrued some leave and I took a vacation from the Forest Service and we rode, my girlfriend and I and two other good friends of ours, rode the thoroughfare from Yellowstone Lake out Pacific Creek, like 6 or 7 days. And not watching the clock or not worrying about somebody else's screwball horses or anything. We just camped and cooked and saddled up every morning and rode all day. It was awesome. It's so much work, and it was really nice to go see it, see what the public is actually getting. And it's priceless. It's the best. It was very reaffirming to see that what we're doing is really valuable.
Darling, turn on the TV, pick up the phone, call my stockbroker, check my portfolio. If I hadn't have checked Facebook, I'd be the last one to know. You won't believe what's floating down the Yellowstone, but there's a 2-story timber-framed rustic abode, a carbon-free compound geodesic dome. There's Airbnbs and VRBOs. I think it's time that we invest in a boat. Well, my heart is sinking, and the snowpack is too. The river's rising. Oh, what can we do? We can't protect our investment without swimming lessons. Oh, I just can't believe that it's true. But there's a neo-colonial ranch-style condo and 15 identical vacation homes. There's country chateaus, second and third homes. I think it's time that we invest in a boat. I think it's high time that we invest in a boat.
Geography is just thrilling to me. Before I was a horseman or a musician, the first thing that came in my life was I wanted to come here and live here because it's beautiful and sort of intoxicating. And I love the mountains, and I love this kind of corridor, this boundary here between the prairies and the mountains is really, really cool. I do think I read The Triggering Town when I was in college in Missoula, as you must, and I think Hugo was pretty direct about, like, all good writing is rooted in place. And I think, I don't know, before songwriting ever came into it, that's just how I understand the world. And it's, when I meet people, it's pretty pronounced. Like, I don't think you can make a convincing character without setting them in a place, because place in your geography and your ecology creates an economic system, and that creates people's modes of living, and that all the way down to like their dialect and their mannerisms. Like, I think we're very much a product of our environments. I couldn't write a song or walk down the street and get a cup of coffee if I didn't have some sense of like where I was and how the world was working around me.
Is there still our sign in the North Fork? Or is the trail already lost in the dust where our feet had fallen, in the folds of the country we crossed? Could there be a mark on a stone there, a ripple where the rain fell on rock, hard grooves where the water had touched what our hands could not? Is her current still pressing onward, and the world with each day made new and made from nothing, like the handle of the tool? Now I swing an axe with the morning and burn it all before night is through. Winning is just breaking even. To gain is only to lose. Is there still our sign in the North Fork? Some record of our little lives? Are these hills still blackened at daybreak, but brimming with light?